Hello everyone, in this video we are going to be implementing MeiliSearch into our Medusa 2.0 project. And what that will give us is the capability in the storefront for customers to search for products with an advanced search engine. MeiliSearch is an open source search engine and it can do a lot of fancy things for product title matching and description matching. So this is definitely something that we want to have in our storefront. And if you're unfamiliar with it and maybe also a little bit unfamiliar with Medusa, I will make sure to leave a link to a previous video where I give a little demonstration about how it works. But this is kind of what you can expect in your web shop, to have this search field that your clients can simply search for products. And they will also be matching if they make a little misspelling. That's the power, one of the powers of MeiliSearch. I'm going to be implementing it in an existing Medusa project that I have on Railway. So if you're hosting your project elsewhere, like on a VPS or maybe on your local machine, some steps might be a little bit different for you, but I'll make sure to try my best to tell where in the process your steps might differ a little bit from the Railway setup. But let's just get right started. I'll scroll down here, and one thing I can also mention is that if you don't have an existing project already, this button right here will take you to a deploy template on Railway that would launch the entire project where everything is pre-configured. So if you want to start over, you can just click this button and you'll get a working project out of the box. But this is only available for Railway hobby users or higher tier. So keep that in mind, at least it's not for free. All right, but to get MeiliSearch integrated into our project, there is basically 3 steps we need to do. And step 1 is to have a running MeiliSearch instance. And the reason why we need an instance is that it is a little bit more advanced than just a NPM package or some JavaScript or TypeScript match functions. It's indexing your products and it's storing the indexing in a little storage volume, so it needs to run in a separate container, unfortunately. It's a very performant one. It doesn't use a lot of resources and it's only being used once clients are actually searching or once indexing. So when we are creating new products, it will use a little bit of resources, and when people are searching, it will use a little bit of resources. But other than that, it's pretty idle. And the next thing is to implement it in our Medusa backend. And then the last thing is to do a little bit of implementation in the Medusa storefront. In order to get a MeiliSearch instance running, there is a few options. So depending on what you prefer, you can launch it on Railway. And that's what I'm going to be doing, but you can also run it in a Docker container. And there's also the third option of simply just paying some money to MeiliSearch, the organization, and they will provide you with a managed service. So it is an open source product that you can just use for free on your local machine. You don't need to pay any licensing or anything, but if you do want to support the development, I can recommend going with the MeiliSearch Cloud option here. And then there's not much work in the step 1 to do. That will just work out of the box. You'll get an API key and all that, but you also pay quite a bit more than running it on Railway, as I'll be doing. But I'll just get started here with the method 1, which is hosting it on Railway. So what we need is a Docker image for MeiliSearch, and I'll copy this title to clipboard, and then I'll head over to my project on Railway. So right here, I'm going to be adding in a new service. Here's my Medusa backend, and here's the storefront, and I have some other things as well, but I need one more for the MeiliSearch. So I'll choose a Docker image and paste in this image name right here, and it's using the latest version, and that is fine. So I'll hit enter. And before we deploy it, there's a few more things that we need to do. So I'll just head back to the guide here and let's see what we need to do. Yeah, so once it's deployed, we rename it, and we can actually rename it before we deploy it. We also need to add some environment variables here. And then we need to attach a storage volume. And this is a little reserved disk space on Railway that makes sure that all your indexed products, they are kept in a volume that is not scrapped once you redeploy. So if you redeploy your system, your product indexing will still be preserved. We need to set the mount path data, and then we need to enable networking. So that is all we need to do. I'll scroll back up here and copy this name to clipboard. And then I will open up the new service we have here, and I'll click the edit button. And I'll paste in the name here. And the reason why we need the name here is because on Railway, when you're referencing variables between services, you do it by their name. So if I just use the name here that is used in the guide, then I can basically copy paste all the other text. And if you are hosting yours on, for example, Coolify or inside a Docker project or something like that, this might work a little bit different how you share values between services. But in Railway, this is how you do it. You give your service a name and then you can reference it. Okay, let's copy all the required variables here. I'll copy those to clipboard and I will simply paste them into the raw editor. I believe something like this also exists for Coolify. And you see this Meili data here is important because this is the mount path that we're gonna set on the storage volume. And this one right here, the public URL, this is a variable that Railway will provide us with once we enable networking, which is a few steps ahead of here. So also if you are hosting it somewhere else, the public URL you need to paste in here. And along, I can also recommend setting a different master key. But for now, this is just a demonstration project, so I'm just gonna be using this dummy password here, but please set a more secure password. All right, I'll update these values. And then we need to attach the storage volume and we needed the path to be this here. So I'll go back here and you right click on the service and choose attach storage volume and you paste in the path. And please keep in mind, Railway, they do update their user interface every now and then. So some steps might be a little bit different depending on how far in the future from this video you are watching. But I think this should be showing the point of what you need to do. Okay, what else do we need to do? So the last thing is to enable networking, and that was so our public URL here is replaced not with this template string here. But I believe we cannot do that until we actually have deployed. So here it says deploy service to see network settings. So I'm going to hit the deploy button and hope that I did everything right so we don't have to redeploy. This usually takes 30 seconds. So I'm just gonna pause the video recording and unpause as soon as it's live. Okay, that didn't take long, 30 seconds. And we now see here we have some networking settings. And just as I said before, the user interface does change from time to time. And this is what it looked like when the guide was written. And it looks a little bit different now, but I know that what we need to do is click this generate domain button and then we should get the domain. Let's see, it looks like, yeah, now we have a real public domain here. So if you are hosting it somewhere else and you have a public domain, you can simply copy this value and then paste it into the public URL. But because we're on Railway and we had this template string, it is already here right now. So this is correctly pointing to the public URL of this service. And we need it to be a public URL because the storefront will communicate directly to this service here. So once your storefront is sending search requests, it goes through the public network here. All right, let's head back to the guide and see what else needs to be done. Yeah, so I think we are finished with the setup here because we used the Railway method, but in case you wanna host your MeiliSearch container somehow else, here is an example of a Docker Compose file that is configured to work with the rest of the configuration. So you see here, the Meili data path is setting to match the one of the storage volume. This one you should change also. But other than that, this is what you need for Docker Compose to launch a similar instance. You can see here it's using the exact same image. And the last option, as I mentioned, was the MeiliSearch Cloud. You can check it out here. I believe it costs $29 per month. All right, let's continue with the implementation. The next thing is to implement it in our backend, and we're going to be using a community-created service. So I'll just open up the repository of the module that we'll be using. It is made by Ruk Moha, and please give it a star. I already did. So we need to install the module. So I'll just copy this to clipboard, and now it's time to open up our code editor. I already have this entire project cloned to my local machine. So I have it here in VS Code, and let's just change directory to the backend. This is where we are working right now. And we want to install this library, and I'm using p npm. So I'll just add a p right here and hit enter. and it is installed. What else needs to be done? So setting up environment variables, I'm using Railway, so I will be needing these two right here. If you are using Docker, you would have to add these in some way else. Maybe in a .env file or somehow else. If you're using Coolify, I'm not sure exactly how, but on Railway, we can simply copy these two to clipboard. And then over at our Railway project, we choose our backend, and I open the raw editor, and I'll paste these two into the top here. And please note that this name here, MeiliSearch, it needs to match the name of the service that we created. Otherwise, these references won't work correctly. That is why we needed to rename the service. But we want the master key and the public URL, and that should be it. So I'll update. And we see now that we updated that we get this little arrow here, which means that we are correctly referencing to the MeiliSearch. And I'll hit deploy now because this takes some time. The backend takes about a few minutes to deploy. So I'll do that while I continue with the guide. So let's head over here. Now we need to configure the module in our Medusa config. So I can simply just copy this to clipboard, and then we need to find our Medusa config. I have it open right here. And I like to add my modules at the bottom. So last modules is always at the bottom. So I'll paste in this here. And we are resolving the library that we just installed from the community created by Rukmoha. And then we need to pass in these environment variables. So if you are running locally, make sure to add the MeiliSearch host and API key to your .env file. I only have a template one in this project because I'm not really running it in local, but this is where you would add in these values if you want to run it locally. But I don't care too much about that because I'm only concerned about the production environment on Railway. Next thing we need to do is to find some way to index our products. So there's 3 events that are important for this, and that is when you create a new product, then we need to index it so it becomes available in the search engine. And also if we update it, so if you change the title, it is important that that title change is reflected in the search indexing. And lastly, when you delete products, it's also quite good that we remove them from the search indexing so we don't get false hits, or customers don't get false hits when they search for something and it's not there anymore. So there is 2 different subscribers that we can do because this one handles both the create event and the update event. So I'll copy this to clipboard and then I'll create it into my backend project. So I'll find the subscribers folder. This is where we need to add it, and I'll add a new file, and it is called product upsert.ts, and I can paste in all this code here. And if you're getting these resolve errors, there's a few different TypeScript configurations for module resolution. So if you're getting errors, I believe you just need to add in framework here, and then it should be fine. But also without framework, even though TypeScript throws an error here, it actually still works because there is some kind of dependency linking going on or something like that. So the compiler can figure it out, but the linter cannot, I think. But this is good. Let's just go over exactly what this does. So when the Medusa backend is firing either a product created or product updated event, we subscribe to it, and this code will then run. And in the event data, we get the product ID. We then resolve 2 different services, and one is the MeiliSearch service from the library we just installed, and the other one is the product module service. We then use the product ID from the event to look up the product, so we now have all the information that we need for search indexing. And lastly, we are using the MeiliSearch service to call the add documents on a product with the product data. And that's all. Then the product indexing should happen in MeiliSearch if everything was configured correctly. Let's continue with the deletion. So I'll head back to the guide and I will copy the delete subscriber code here, create a new file, product delete, paste it in, and again here I need to add /framework just to satisfy the linter. And this is similar, it is even less complicated than before. We're subscribing to the delete event and we get the product ID, and we don't even need to look up the product ID because we can simply call the delete document function just with the product ID, and then it's removed. So we don't need to look up the product first. All right, this should be all for the backend. We added in to our Medusa configuration the module here, and then we created 2 subscribers that handles all the indexing. I'll make sure to save all my files, and then I'm going to push it to Git already now, I think. All right, we now pushed our updates. And the guide confirms that is all for the backend. We are done now. So the last part is to make it work in the storefront as well. And let's see what's required here. So the storefront implementation is straightforward if you're using the official Next.js starter. And this statement is partially true because I think that they actually removed it again. So let's see here if it does still have it. I don't get too many hits when I search for MeiliSearch in the Next.js starter. But I do have my own repository. So I'll make sure to leave a link to this Git repository in this storefront, in this version of the storefront, which was a clone of the official Next.js starter. We do have a lot of MeiliSearch already implemented. So if I search for MeiliSearch here, let's see here, backend, storefront. So you see here there is a few things already implemented in the storefront. There is a storefront source lib search client that has something to do with MeiliSearch and is using this package right here. And there's something in the search actions. And then we're back to backend, something readme storefront. And these are the dependencies. So I believe they also removed the MeiliSearch module from the Next.js starter. So you need to install this module right here if you don't already have it. Or you can simply clone my storefront from this URL right here. I'll make sure to leave a link to this in the video description. But what we need to do is adding a few environment variables. And again, I'm doing it on Railway, so I can copy these and head over here, find my storefront and go into the raw editor. Paste these in. And again, we're using the reference to the service that we renamed, master key, public key. Yeah, this looks fine. I'll update the variables. One thing maybe I should tell you is that using the master key on the storefront is not really a good idea, because the master key can also be used to index product and delete products from your MeiliSearch. And once your customers load the storefront, they will get the search API key, the master key. So I'm just gonna use it for now and test that the integration work, and then I'll show you how you generate a new API key and put in one that can only be used for search as well, so we don't expose the master key. But for now, we're just using the master key. Gonna hit deploy. Let's see what else we need to do. Well, that should be it. Looks like we're done. I'll just wait for the storefront to finish, and then we can test the integration to see if it works. All right, the storefront is finished building. Let's open it up and see if we can already search for our products now. I'm not expecting for that to be possible because the products shouldn't have been indexed, because we haven't deleted, updated, or created any products after we implemented the MeiliSearch integration. But let's just see what happens. Okay, and I want to inspect my network request right here. So I'll click the search and see. Yeah, so we are not getting any networking errors. And we can see right here in the authorization header that we're using some long random string, which is the master password, which we don't want to be doing. And we'll fix that later. Let's head back to Railway and find a way to get the products indexed. So I'll go back here and then I will log into my admin dashboard. All right, I'm now logged into my admin dashboard and I have 4 different products. So we just need to trigger the update event on all of these. So maybe I'll change the title and save it. Yeah, it was updated. Let's check the storefront already if this worked. Open up the search again. And we now see our first product. That's a good sign. Let's add in more. All right, I now updated all the products. Let's refresh the page here. And we now see all the new products with updated titles. So we know the search integration is now working, and the next thing we want to do is to create a proper API key to use so we don't expose this master key. Generating the search key is pretty easy. Well, actually it's already generated. We just need to fetch it. So let's head over to the guide, and there's a link here to the resources about the keys. And if we scroll a little bit down, I believe somewhere around here, it says get all keys, and you need to use the keys endpoint. So I'll copy this to clipboard, and then you need to either use Postman or some other tools to make API requests. And I have my own favorite. It's called Thunder Client, and it is an extension in VS Code. So I'll simply use that and click create new request. And then I'll paste in the endpoint, but we also need the MeiliSearch public URL. So I'll find that as well. And it is right here. So I'll paste that in here. So now we have our MeiliSearch instance URL / keys. Now we just need to add the master key so we can actually fetch all the other keys. So go to variables and my master key, tap back here and paste it into the bearer authorization header. And if I click send, we should see all of our keys, and they have some description, which is very useful. So this one says use it to search from the front end. So I can simply just copy this key to clipboard and then tap back over to Railway and find the storefront, and then next public search API key. The name public is also a good hint that you shouldn't use the master key here. So I'll replace this here with the public one, and then we need to deploy and test that that works, but that is it. Then we are done. All right, the storefront is finished building. So let's just check that it still works now with the new public key. So I'll open it up here. Again, I want to inspect my network request just to make sure that we are not exposing the master key anymore. Go here, search, and I will, well, we're finding the products. That's a good sign. I'll just put in some text here. And let's see if there is an authorization header. And this one is the public key that we are perfectly allowed to expose, because this one can only be used to fetch products and not to create indexing or delete indexing. So this is all. We have now successfully implemented MeiliSearch into our existing Medusa project. And again, I won't be going into the whole code implementation in the storefront because, well, at some point in time, it did exist as default in the storefront starter. It is not there currently. I don't know when or why they removed it, but maybe it will be back. I'm not sure. But in the meantime, you can just use my boilerplate repository, and I will make sure to leave a link to it. And in the storefront here, This is just a completely basic storefront that I launched a few months ago. And I've made a number of customizations to it, but this one includes all the MeiliSearch implementation that you need. So you can either replicate that or simply just clone this storefront and use that in your project. Alternatively, if you wanna just see the full thing finished, you can click this button. And if you do have a railway account that is a paid one, so a hobby plan or more, this template here launches with MeiliSearch already pre-configured, and this just works out of the box. So if you get stuck with anything, I can recommend spinning up this template and see what it's doing and what you might be doing wrong. You can always take down that project again if you don't need it. Also, this project is configured with automation of fetching the search API key, so it's not exposing the master key. When you launch this project and spin it up, it's automatically fetching the search key. So this one is really no effort, just click and play. So you can use this as a reference if you're still struggling with your own implementation. But that is all for now. I hope that this helps you to get search functionality into your Medusa webshop. That is all for now. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.